Hey there. Ready to dive deep? We're going way beyond the headlines today with American Electric Power's 2024 Sustainability Report.
Mm-hmm.
We got a lot to unpack here. We've got the full report, a shorter version,
Mm-hmm.
and we've even pulled last year's for context. And
Yeah.
trust me, this isn't just corporate jargon. It gets really interesting. It's basically a roadmap for how AEP is handling this whole energy transition thing
Yeah.
and what that actually means for you, like your everyday life.
Right.
For example, did you know that AEP helped a family of osprey? Like twice?
No.
Their nests kept getting wiped out by storms? And these line workers, like they went above and beyond to relocate them.
Wow.
It's a small act,
My.
but I think it says a lot.
Yeah. It really speaks to, I think, AEP's core challenge, right? Which
Yeah.
is balancing this huge shift to cleaner energy with keeping your lights on, like
Yeah.
reliably, affordably. And even their definition of energy transition that they use in the report emphasizes this, acknowledging the needs of all their different customers and the reality of the states that they actually operate in.
Yeah, because let's be real. We all care about the planet, but we also care about our energy bills.
Of course. Yeah.
And the report actually does a good job of not shying away from those rising fuel costs, especially natural gas,
Yeah.
which often gets passed directly to the consumer.
Right. And that's where I think AEP's evolving energy portfolio gets really interesting.
Yeah.
They're putting their money where their mouth is. They're pouring $9.4 billion into renewable energy projects.
Wow.
That's not chump change. That's a serious commitment to change, even if they're still reliant on natural gas and some existing coal plants as we transition.
Yeah, it's like they're building the plane while flying it,
Right, exactly.
especially since state regulators have such a big say in approving these new projects.
Oh, absolutely. AEP can't just flip a switch overnight, They have to work within those existing regulations and rules. But beyond all the, nuts and bolts of power plants and emissions,
Right.
there's some really surprising initiatives that I found that you might not expect.
Okay. Spill the tea. What'd you find? What hidden gems did you uncover?
So one that really stood out to me is their Just Transition program.
Okay.
And so as coal plants are phased out, it's not just about the environment, it's about the people and the communities that are impacted by those closures.
Right.
And AEP is taking steps to make sure those people aren't left behind, whether it's jobs, tax revenue, the whole picture.
Wow. So they're putting their money where their mouth is on that whole social responsibility thing.
Yeah, they are. It's not all serious business, though.
Oh, yeah?
I hear there's some actual bee saving going on.
Wait, really?
Yeah, quite literally. Instead of just using turf grass after construction, they're researching native seed mixes for revegetation.
Interesting.
And it turns out it's not just prettier. They've found rare species like the American bumblebee
Wow.
thriving in those restored habitats.
Now, that's what I call a win-win.
Right?
Speaking of win-win, what about AEP's push for efficient electrification? Where are they at with that?
Yeah, so that's where things get a little more nuanced, I think.
Okay.
They offer things like rebates for energy efficient appliances,
Right.
but they've actually hit pause on their own fleet electrification target,
Interesting.
citing supply chain issues and the need to make sure it's actually cost effective.
So they're not just jumping on the bandwagon. Right. They're trying to be really critical about how to make these changes last.
Yeah, and I think that's really responsible of them.
Totally. But let's talk about the people who are actually making this happen.
Yeah.
AEP's workforce.
Yes.
This whole energy transition requires a whole new skill set, right?
Absolutely. And AEP is putting a ton of emphasis on workforce development, especially attracting new talent in STEM fields.
Mm-hmm.
So they have this scholarship fund called the PISO AEP Diversity High Voltage Line Person Scholarship,
Okay.
specifically for aspiring line workers from diverse backgrounds.
Oh, that's great.
And they're partnering with the U.S. Army's Pay White Us program to help veterans transition into energy sector jobs.
That's fantastic to hear.
Yeah.
Although I did notice the report also mentions the tragic loss of 3 workers in 2023,
Yeah.
which is a stark reminder that this industry, it's not without its risks, even as it evolves.
Yeah, a very tragic situation for sure. And speaking of complexity, let's talk about ESG,
Okay.
environmental, social, and governance,
ESG, yeah.
which is a framework I'm sure you've probably heard a lot about these days.
It's become quite the buzzword.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm not even sure most people know what it means.
Right.
What does it actually mean for a company? Like,
Yeah.
practically? Like for AEP?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think for AEP, it means going beyond just checking boxes. you
Right.
know? So, for example, they have this Rio Grande Valley Transmission Improvements Project,
Oh,
and they went above and beyond to engage with the Spanish-speaking community there,
a lot.
providing all the materials in both English and Spanish.
Great.
That's real commitment to environmental.
Yeah, walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Precisely. And they're exceeding expectations when it comes to transparency, too.
Okay, how so?
Well, AEP publicly discloses all of their political contributions and lobbying efforts,
Wow.
which they don't legally have to do.
Right.
They go above and beyond.
Okay, now that's impressive.
Yeah.
It shows they're willing to be held accountable.
It does.
What about the G and ESG governance? What does that look like for a company responsible for something as vital as our power grid?
Yeah, that's a great point. Cybersecurity is paramount.
Wow.
With all these increasingly sophisticated cyber attacks,
Oh, for sure.
AEP is putting a lot of money into those robust security measures to protect the power grid.
It really is. Like they're
Wow.
guarding the crown jewels. But instead of jewels, it's our electricity.
You got it. A huge responsibility. And AEP seems to be taking it very seriously. But even with all that cybersecurity, there's another threat they're dealing with: extreme weather.
Yeah.
The 2023 Texas heat dome really put a spotlight on that whole vulnerability thing.
Oh, yeah, definitely a wake-up call.
Yeah?
Those record high temperatures, I mean, it pushed the power grid to its absolute limit.
Yeah, AEP actually had to ask customers to conserve energy just to try to avoid rolling blackouts.
Wow.
Climate change impacting our lives in a very real way.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And those events are only going to get more frequent.
Right. So how is AEP actually preparing the grid for these future events, a future with more extreme weather?
Modernization.
Okay.
Think smart meters, advanced sensors that are kind of like a nervous system for the grid,
Interesting.
providing real-time data,
Yeah.
predicting potential issues,
Yeah.
and then rerouting power to avoid outages. So instead of just reacting to problems, they're trying to get ahead of them.
Precisely. And those smart meters,
Yeah.
they're not just for AEP's benefit.
No.
They give customers more control too, and information about their energy use.
Interesting.
In fact, the report had this anecdote about a smart meter detecting a partial outage at a church in Indiana.
Oh?
Turned out to be a melting electrical panel,
Whoa. So it like prevented a fire.
potentially.
Yeah, it's incredible. Talk about a real-world impact.
It really goes to show that all these technology investments, it's not just about going green, it's about creating a smarter, more resilient grid that benefits everybody.
Right.
A win for AEP, a win for the customer, and a win for safety.
It sounds like a win for the planet, too. But let's talk about one of the more controversial technologies out there, carbon capture and storage. Some people think it's the answer. Others think it's a distraction. What's AEP's stance on that?
I think they're approaching it with cautious optimism. Yeah. They acknowledge the challenges. It's expensive. It's not really proven on a large scale. But they're watching it closely, exploring the potential. Because, let's face it, we're probably going to need a mix of solutions to really reach net zero.
Right. So they're keeping an open mind. What about those small modular nuclear reactors? Have you heard about those?
Yeah.
What do they think?
They kind of see them as a potential game changer, especially since they provide a consistent energy supply.
Which renewables can't always do.
Right. Unlike renewables that depend on, weather, but they also acknowledge the concerns
Of course.
about safety and waste disposal.
Right? It's a tricky balance.
Yeah.
But it's clear that AEP is trying to stay ahead of the curve, exploring all options, thinking long-term.
Mm-hmm.
And to do that, they need a workforce that's ready for anything. What are they doing to make sure their employees have the skills for this, changing energy landscape?
Workforce development is definitely a top priority for them.
Okay.
And they're really putting a lot into it. Think
Yeah.
partnerships with colleges and technical schools, creating programs that align with the skills you'd need for a renewable-powered grid. So we're talking scholarships, apprenticeships, leadership programs to help those employees adapt and thrive.
Wow. Investing in their people. That's huge.
It is. And it's not just about technical skills either.
Yeah.
They're emphasizing things like communication, collaboration, problem solving. Because in this industry, adaptability is key.
Mm-hmm. So they're walking the walk when it comes to their own internal sustainability. But they're also using their influence to advocate for bigger picture policy changes. Right.
They are.
And they're surprisingly transparent about it.
More than you would expect.
But-
Going above and beyond those legal requirements by publicly disclosing all those contributions to certain social welfare organizations. even though they don't have to.
Wow.
And they also provide regular updates on all their political activities to their board.
Talk about accountability.
Yeah.
Seems like they're trying to walk this tightrope between, pushing for progress,
Yes.
but also addressing those social impacts of these changes,
Right.
especially when it comes to communities that are affected by power plant closures.
Absolutely. AEP's report really stresses their commitment to a just energy transition. They get it. It's not just about cleaner energy. It's about making sure those benefits are shared fairly, especially with communities that have historically been disadvantaged.
So taking responsibility for the bigger picture.
Exactly. They're not just focused on the bottom line. It's the well-being of their employees, the communities they serve, and the planet as a whole.
It's almost like they're trying to write a new playbook for what corporate responsibility actually looks like
It's true.
in this new era of energy.
It is. And I think this report gives us a really good glimpse into their game plan.
Yeah.
But it also raises some interesting questions about the energy transition as a whole.
It really makes you think, if AEP, a company literally built on, the old way of doing things, if they can make these changes, what does that mean for other industries?
It's a signal, right? This whole shift towards sustainability, this isn't just a trend. It's the future of how business gets done.
Yeah.
And for those who are paying attention, like maybe you listening right now, there's a lot to learn from how AEP is handling it.
Totally. So let's distill some of these key takeaways.
Okay.
Make this practical for our listener.
Yes.
What were some of the biggest aha moments for you from this deep dive?
Well, I think first off, the sheer scale of this energy transition, you don't really get it until you dig into the specifics, like we did here.
Right.
AEP's $9.4 billion renewable energy investment, the whole grid modernization, workforce retraining. I mean, it's massive.
It is a lot, and it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the problem.
Right.
But seeing a company actually take these concrete steps, it does help.
Right. It gives you some hope.
Yeah, exactly. And it also highlights how intertwined this all is. Like we were talking about those smart meters earlier. They're not just a tech upgrade.
Right.
They're empowering customers. They're potentially preventing fires. And they're making the grid more resilient.
It's all connected. And that makes me think about another takeaway, which is how AEP is tackling this from all these different angles.
Yes.
It's not just about emissions. They're thinking about the jobs, the communities, cybersecurity, native bees.
It's a very holistic approach.
Yeah.
Which is crucial, because a truly sustainable energy future, it's not just about clean electrons. It's about building a system that's equitable. It's reliable. And it's affordable for everybody.
And that requires transparency, which AEP seems to get. They're publicly disclosing their political activities. They're exceeding expectations on environmental justice.
Right.
That's not just PR.
No, it's not. It really signals, I think, a shift in the corporate mindset.
Yeah.
Recognizing that accountability and stakeholder engagement, they're not just buzzwords. They're essential for long-term success.
Yeah, it's refreshing. Honestly, it makes you wonder, how would things be different if more companies operated this way?
Right.
And not just in energy, I mean, across the board.
That's the million-dollar question.
It is.
AEP's report is just one company's journey,
Right.
but I think it reflects a much larger evolution that's happening right now.
Totally. And as we wrap up, that's what I want to leave our listeners with. This isn't just AEP's story. It's a glimpse into the future that we're all creating.
That's a good way to put it, right? One energy decision at a time.
I like that.
So whether you're an investor, a customer, or just someone who wants to keep the lights on, understanding these trends, it's essential.
It is.
And AEP's report gives us a lot to think about.
It does.
And hopefully inspires some action, too.
I hope so.
So thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep those questions coming. And until next time, stay curious.